Welcome back to Hoops HD, everybody. This is our weekly Under the Radar podcast. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined by the puppet David Griggs and Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org back with us as well. This is Under the Radar. As we are starting to record this show here on Wednesday evening, we just watched the end of the Indiana-Florida State game. And David, we are going to be discussing a game like that. How much is there during this podcast?
None. There were other big games yesterday. I think we had 3 top 20 matchups. We won't be mentioning those at all.
So what will we discuss? What is Under the Radar for those that are new to this show?
In short, it is the 22 regular one-bid leagues. And I want to make sure you understand, if you're watching this, you probably do. The one-bid league is not automatic. It's not predetermined. It's just that 19 times out of 20, that's all that these leagues end up getting. There are 10 multi-bid leagues. It's the Power 5, the Big East, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, and SEC. There are 5 additional multi-bid leagues, the Atlantic 10, Big East, Mountain West, West Coast, and American. I almost always forget one, but I think I got them all. This is the other 22, well, this year 21, because the Ivy League's not playing, leagues. Now, there's a couple teams, we'll get to them, that we think could get at large bids if they were to need it, so that league could potentially get more than 2, but probably not many. There's what 250 teams in this conferences, and maybe 3 or 4 end up inside the bubble in a good year.
Yeah, about in a very good year, I think, maybe. Yeah. But
right.
Yeah, or the disqualifiers. If you're in the top 25 in either poll, you're not considered under the radar. It's been a year and a half since we've seen that, so it's been a little disappointing. But what we like to do with the show is we start out with a feature conference, which I always like to surprise you guys with. And if I can get this screen share thing going here, and Zoom always changes the way they work on me, so I might not be able to. I think I found the button. What we do is pull up our feature conference, and Rocco, I decided that based on what we saw, especially yesterday, our feature conference this week should really be the Mid-America, as in the Mid-America Intercollegiate Athletic Association, the MIAA.
What the hell is that nonsense?
Fort Hays State.
Oh, yes!
Their conference. Conference of the week here. They haven't even bothered updating the standings from last night's game, as you can see there on the screen. Here is our feature conference for the first time ever under the radar. We have gone non-D1 after Fort Hays State goes to Kansas State last night and blows them out of the water.
Yeah, some teams with some pretty good records in this conference. You know, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 teams that are 3-0 or 4-0. You got some teams with really poor records in this conference. Fort Hays State, one of the ones with a poor record prior to week K-State yesterday, which is a sign that if K-State played in this league instead of in the Big 12, they'd probably finish last. Well done by Bruce Weber and company out there in Kansas. Oh, wow. How many of these teams are in Kansas? We've got
quite a
most
few.
of them, I think.
Yeah.
And Missouri.
Yeah.
Got a few Nebraska schools there, too, yeah. Rocco, any thoughts on that game we saw last night?
I mean, just appalling, really. I can't really put it into words. Like, just the fact that Fort Hays State was 0-3, and I don't even think they've played like the best teams yet in this league. And they can go beat a Big 12 team. It makes you wonder. That's certainly like a motivation and attitude issue probably in the Kansas State
take it a
locker
step
room.
Yeah, take it a step further, Rocco. Fort Hays State, both their head coach and their top assistant missed the game because they both had tested positive for COVID. They were down to their second assistant, who had only been on the bench coaching for 2 years at all.
Promote him.
A 26-year-old guy. I mean, it was.
Promote him. Promote him right now. He deserves it.
Heck, give him the game at Coach K-State.
Give him the K-State job. I mean, I know it's not a Big 12 show right now, but is K-State even going to win a Big 12 game? They could go.
No!
I mean,
wow. Bruce Weber, K-State's coach. This is a man that coached in the national championship game. He's coached in the Final Four, coached in a couple of Elite Eights. Yesterday, getting boat raced by Fort Hays State, 0-3 out of the – what is the name of this league?
MIAA.
MIAA. I believe it stands for. I tried to do it earlier. Let's go. Mid-America Intercollegiate Athletic Association. There it
Okay.
is. But
Northwest Missouri, I can tell you, they are a powerhouse. They were the number one team last year before they
Okay.
got shut down. But and Emporia State's always good. They're like a top 10 program.
Yeah,
I
know
met
that.
their coach at one point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Central Missouri's won a D2
Fort Hays
championship.
State was 14-14 last season. They were 0-3 against this conference this season. How to get to and they may win 2 or 3 conference games this year. They're not going to be very good. Anyhow, let's turn to the real under the radar teams, and hopefully we should see there the America East now coming up. We'll go through them all in alphabetical order here. And David, let me start with you in the America East. We still haven't seen the top team in this conference play yet, so
we haven't
really,
seen most of the teams in this conference play yet. Maine off to one of their best starts in years, I must say. But like the team that I think that we all kind of have our eye on is Vermont, have not yet played. But of the teams that have played, how about UMBC? They're off to a little bit better than what we expected to start. New Hampshire, a team we were kind of excited about, not, almost off to a worse start.
I agree, David. I think UMBC is the real story. I don't know there's much of another story out there quite yet because we're waiting for so many of these teams to get going. But the Retrievers have been really impressive, especially back-to-back games with an A-10 team in George Washington and a CAA Delaware team that some people picked to do really well this year, and they beat them both by double digits.
Yeah.
That's pretty eye-opening for UMBC, who's trying to fight their way into the top 200, and I think they just did in Ken Palm. But they've got some other
195
good match. Yeah, they got Mount St. Mary's this weekend. That should be fun. We'll talk about them soon. But yeah, I think the Retrievers could be a pretty good contender based on the way they've started.
Yeah, and you just really I don't know what Vermont has coming up. I guess we're going to see it in a second. But this
Vermont currently does not have any games scheduled until conference play begins. Once they get healthy, they may try to squeeze a few games in, but right now they have no non-conference games technically scheduled.
All right. So you hope that they can get a few. This is what we think will be a pretty decent Vermont team. So you hope they can get a couple out of conference games in.
There is what upcoming games are scheduled there. I guess we'll start some conference play even.
Unfortunately, Chad, 3 of those have now been moved.
Okay.
New Hampshire and NJIT have moved to the 22nd and 23rd, so they're going to be a couple weeks away now. And the Robert Morris Binghamton game was just removed. The Binghamton's in Broome County, New York, and they have county restrictions not allowing if the visiting team is from a county that is either in an orange or red COVID area, they are not allowed to play there. And Binghamton also cannot travel to a team that is in an orange or red county. So this is another one I learned this morning. So Binghamton might be sitting out for a while.
Or playing their games in North Carolina along with Stanford, something, who knows. Santa Cruz, that facility is available, I think.
Yeah, come on down. We want them out here.
Send Vermont out there.
So when you see upcoming games throughout this podcast on the screen, take them with a huge grain of salt. We'll point them out where we know it, but there's probably a lot of games that are off that we've missed as well. Over in the Atlantic Sun, the story here, Rocco, really has been this Liberty team who's looked really, I think has looked really good so far this season.
Yeah, they've already beaten 2 SEC programs, South Carolina, Mississippi State. They hung in there at the Space Coast Classic in the games they lost, and now they've really made Missouri sweat tonight. Amazing job scheduling. I mean, they're now getting comfortable playing SEC and ACC programs, and that's a world of difference from what they'll see in conference play. The Flames look really dangerous. They're playing good team defense. They have an effective motion offense that gets them open looks, and so they might suddenly be the favorite because Lipscomb's been a little disappointing.
Yeah, as we record this, actually, Lipscomb is playing a home game against SEMO that they just actually hit a 3 at the buzzer to send it to overtime. So, but it's a game they should win. It's against SEMO. So
yeah, SEMO really poor team out of the OVC. I mean, you'd think that Lipscomb should handle them. I've seen no one else in this league that could even touch Liberty. In Lipscomb, again, they could hold on to win that, and I guess they deserve credit. A win is a win, but I mean, that doesn't instill a lot of confidence when you're taking SEMO to overtime at home.
Yeah.
And if they lose that, they'll lose 2 in a row to SEMO.
Yeah.
They just lost there.
Yeah. Here's the alleged upcoming schedule. That Liberty, Missouri game is actually going on as we record this as well. Liberty was in there, as we mentioned, most of the game, but looks like Missouri's going to pull it out at the end here. The rest of the games of the schedule, who knows if they'll actually happen or not. But the big one, if it does happen, I guess, to circle David, of course, is the Battle of the Boulevard there Saturday, Belmont and Lipscomb.
Yeah, one of the better under-the-radar rivalries. This game is intense. You kind of hate that it won't be played in front of fans, but despite it not being a conference game, it's one that we always circle, one that we always enjoy. And, I know we just got done trashing Lipscomb a little bit, but it's still going to be pretty fun.
And
Where would you rank that? There's Akron, Kent State. There's, Manhattan, Iona. We like that one. Obviously, St. Francis, Brooklyn, Long Island. But, this is among our favorites. And that's not hyperbole. We really love this series.
It is. And I think one of the good news, if the game does get canceled, they're just a few miles down the street from each other in Nashville there. It'll be easy to reschedule the game on a moment's notice. So hopefully they will get both games head-to-head in this season.
Yeah, and actually, Chad, at OVC Media Day, I actually was on the Zoom when Casey Alexander was on from Belmont, and he said chances were pretty good, even though they weren't on the original schedule. They already got this one on the schedule now. That later in the year, they'll probably get them both in just based on cancellations and them being the easiest game to schedule.
Of course, Casey Alexander, former Lipscomb coach, now took over at Belmont too.
Yeah, longtime assistant. Longtime assistant to Rick Byrd. I want to say 20-something years. Went and took the job at Lipscomb when it became open. Was there 1 year and then returned when Rick Byrd retired. So, a little bit.
Was it only there 1 year? I thought it was there longer than 1 year.
It may have been longer, but it wasn't long.
It was either 1 or 2. I think. That's right.
Yeah. And a really good bench coach. We'll talk more about Belmont later, but wow, Lipscomb's struggling.
Moving over to the Big Sky Conference next. Should be showing up on the screen here, but Rocco, we still have a team here. Northern Colorado hasn't got a single game in yet. Northern Arizona 1 game. Eastern Washington, one of the preseason favorites, 0-3. But I guess kind of disappointed. There have been a couple conference games here, but I don't know if there's anything you've seen out of this league yet so far.
Well, I think the story from the last week was Southern Utah pulling off not 1 but 2 back-to-back 1 point wins over Montana, which Montana is a contender every year. So for them to get both of those wins, I think was pretty big. I figured I thought they had no business winning that first game. I watched most of it. And I figured Montana would come out angry, but Southern Utah held them off again the second day. So that could mean a lot later on in the year as teams are jockeying for position depending on how many teams they send to their conference tournament. That's probably a work in progress throughout the year. But congrats to the T-Birds. They're also playing very well right now at Utah Valley. Last I saw, they're up by double digits.
Yeah, definitely the story of this league. And
they won that game, actually. But go ahead, David.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one that we were not expecting. I mean, even at the preseason podcast, I think we made mention of how much they've improved in recent years, but we never thought, this. Who else do you like? Northern Colorado, I think they're good, but they haven't played. Eastern Washington's been kind of disappointing. So Southern Utah, the story of the conference. And
I agree, David. Yeah, I think Eastern is still pretty tough. All 3 of their games were against Pac-12 schools. Then they only lost to Arizona by 3. They lost to Wazoo by 4. And then Oregon, they were tied at half and fell apart in the second half. So I still think this Eastern team's pretty dangerous. And until they lose to somebody really horrible, I'm going to keep them probably the favorite. But
does Wazoo qualify as being really horrible?
Well, I think a full strength. I think a full strength Eastern team wins that game, but they had 6 guys healthy in the Eastern game, and they only had 7 against Arizona because they had COVID issues. I'm surprised they were even able to play, but they were, and they fought. So I think they got some talent there.
A couple of things here in the upcoming schedule. First of all, you see Eastern Washington, Southern Utah. I don't even see them on the schedule for next week, other than the game tonight. Eastern Washington's at St. Mary's for their next game, so it could be another loss. David, though, Northern Colorado, at Colorado and at Colorado State this week.
The Front Range.
The
Yes.
Front Range.
We love the Front Range. 6 teams, a round robin. Well, they don't play it.
And David, as we record this, Idaho and Washington State are playing. Idaho up 6 at halftime, surprisingly.
Yeah, I've got it on here. It's 32-24. We've tipped in the second half. There's about 18:30 remaining. This one of the greatest rivalries in not just college basketball, but all of American sport, I think. And why is that, Chad?
Well, I think we need to pull up our hoopshd.com rivalry checker. This is something we could do. We haven't done it yet this year. We can actually check on rivals and find out, A, how many miles apart they are, and B, how many times they've met in the NCAA tournament. So what do you want me to check here? Duke and Carolina? Oh, no. Idaho, right? And who else?
Idaho and Washington State.
And Washington State. Let's find out exactly, according to the hoopshd.com rivalry checker, exactly what's going on with these two teams.
Yes.
We're going to have to do a little calculations here, I think, for a moment, but we should get. They are 9 miles apart. One extra mile.
Why are they? Did they move them further away? I requested it this morning. It said they were 8.3 miles apart.
Look at the asterisk.
Okay. Yeah.
1 extra mile added because of social distancing regulations. Even 9 miles apart, they've never been in the NCAA tournament.
Right. Yes.
And trust me, those two schools need the extra mile.
Yeah.
Where were we? Big Sky Conference. Let's get out of the Big Sky. Let's go to the Big South Conference. And let's see here. Rocco, in the Big South, I'm not certain because I don't see the screen. There it is. Winthrop is a team that I think got off to a real good start with. I know they beat Little Rock and they picked up one of their solid win there.
Yeah, beat Greensboro. Yeah, so they got those two. Unfortunately, they didn't. I think they were originally supposed to play 4. That Louisville event got shut down in the middle. But I think they did enough to prove that they're easily the favorite of the Big South. I think they're capable of, really contending. I don't know if they can get in that large bid at this point, but they look solid. And I was really impressed on, especially the Greensboro game, how they just fought a tough, proven team like that, and we're the better team that night. Also, just a quick little shout out to Campbell. They're playing in a mini tournament down in Jacksonville. They looked great today. They killed New Orleans. Ended up winning by 9, but they were up big. And they beat Jacksonville on their home court yesterday. So.
Yeah, they got one more game against Florida National, so they should take the championship of that event after tomorrow afternoon's game.
I agree on Winthrop. What's their upcoming, like if we can look at their team sheet, are they going to get any shots at heavyweights? I haven't looked at their schedule, and I know it's all.
Actually, here we go. Just my quizzes. I had it up there on the right-hand side.
Okay,
They've got a Furman game coming up on the 19th. If that happens, that's actually a real interesting game. But
and they've got some wiggle room to add more because they lost a couple in Louisville.
Okay, yeah, you would like to see them, especially. I don't know who in that area has had games canceled, but like NC State or North Carolina. I know North Carolina just added NC Central. You kind of wish it could have been, Winthrop, because this Winthrop team. I'm with you, Rocco. I think that at least from the eye test, this is a team that looks like they belong inside the bubble. And when you look at their schedule, who's going to beat them?
Yeah, I think you raise a really good point, and we're in a different year than we've ever seen. And if you're like NC State just went on shutdown yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to be theoretically on pause for 10 to 14 days. If you're NC State and you're on the bubble and you're maybe the 8th or 9th best ACC team, why wouldn't you want to play Winthrop? I mean, they might need help with their resume. And for Winthrop, it's a no-brainer. They need the at-bats. So we could see some of those types of things play out in the next couple months, which would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just hoping.
Yeah, me too.
More of a chance than normal.
Yeah, there is a 20-game conference regular season in the Big South here, so there's only room for, I believe, 2 more games for Winthrop to be squeezed in there, assuming the Furman game happens.
But they did play in an MTE, so they theoretically could add 4 more.
I don't know because they only played 2 games in the MTE, so I don't know if they.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, they can go. They can add 4 more.
Okay. I think you just have to play 2.
Yeah. Because that's okay. We know that.
Okay, then I stand corrected. There's the upcoming schedule. We actually got some conference play coming in here, as well as a few games against some power conference teams, a few games against some ACC teams in there as well.
Yeah.
But let's just move right on along to the Big West Conference, David, and a league that has a few teams here that still also have not started their season yet. As actually 3 of them, including the new D1 entrant UC San Diego, who I believe is only going to play a conference schedule this season anyhow.
Okay.
But I mean, UCSB out to a 3-0 start. I think that's the only thing to talk about.
Right? They are only one D1 game. They finally played a D1 game, and again, they looked really good. This is another team, and I realize out in that area, that's Rocco's stomping ground. It's a lot harder for these teams to find games than other parts of the country where you have so many teams clustered together, and maybe where the restrictions of the state aren't so bad. But like, this is a Gaucho team that you would like to see them maybe get out there against some of the West Coast teams and Pac-12 teams to get some games in, because not just them, but the rest of the conference. But I like this UCSB team. But they, again, when you're looking at merit and evaluating merit, you have to play. And normally that's not a problem. Normally you're playing about 29 to 31 games. But this year they've played 1.
Yeah, it's been tricky for sure, because these schools are in different counties all over California, and then you've got Hawaii, who they'll play a non-D1 game this week, and that will be their only non-conference game of the year. So it really is like a no non-conference at all for Hawaii. Yeah. UC Davis, like, I don't know if you guys have heard, but they're in a county up here that just went on a similar shutdown as Binghamton. So their games are canceled this week, and they're going to have a real tough time getting a game in until either that reverses or they go play in Santa Cruz or something. So yeah, there's a lot of these little challenges for these teams that are not fun, that's for sure. But I do think Santa Barbara is the team to beat. Irvine's had a couple cracks, and USC just blitzed them last night. So I just think from what we've seen, Santa Barbara is the team to beat.
Yeah, I agree.
And Riverside's a great story. So
Riverside's a great story. Yeah,
Riverside is a great story. UCSB, I guess I don't see. Oh, I do see a game at Loyola Marymount technically on the schedule there, but that's
happening. It's a return game. Yep.
Rocco, over in the Colonial, screens are loading slow here, but we should have Colonial standings there. There we go. Northeastern, another team that still hasn't played yet. I don't know that I've seen much that's, I kind of like Drexel heading to the season, and they are 3-1. Maybe that's where we go. Yeah,
Drexel, I thought they've had a couple of nice performances. Definitely a contender. This league is pretty tough to call. I think the encouraging news that came out was UNC Wilmington got a waiver approved for a transfer that averaged almost 20 a game in the Big South. I'm trying to remember his name, but regardless, I think that makes Wilmington suddenly a pretty interesting contender. His first game, they took East Carolina to overtime, but ended up losing by 10. It looks kind of like a blowout on the screen here, but that was actually an overtime game. So maybe watch out for the Seahawks. This league's also just been decimated. You've got William and Mary, who's trying to come back from a pause. Elon and Towson have been out. James Madison's now on pause. Northeastern hasn't played. So yeah, it's just hard to know what's going on. Charleston's really struggled defensively. They got blitzkrieged by Marshall's 3-point barrage tonight. But so I think it's anybody's ball game still.
Yeah, you see the upcoming schedule with a bunch of games that are not going to happen on it. For example, that Elon, North Carolina game, I believe, is off. I believe William and Mary, Virginia is probably going off as well.
They just got rid of that. Yep.
The Drexel games, I think they may go ahead, and those are a couple of games against Philadelphia teams. So those could be a good couple fun ones.
Yeah, those are always good. Well, LaSalle, a D2 team, and St. Joe's also a D2 team.
The Northeastern UMass doubleheader is going to be real interesting because I think it's the opener for both teams, and they're going to play twice.
Yeah.
So that could be fun.
They've opened. Doesn't the Beanpot? Maybe not those two, but don't the Boston schools typically open against each other?
I think BU and Northeastern do. Don't they?
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
I just pulled up here on the screen our next conference, Conference USA, where I think last week we spent a lot of time talking about Western Kentucky. They only had one game this past week where they clobbered Mississippi Valley. So you can kind of go back to last week's podcast about them. But David, there's another team in this conference that started to turn my head a little bit. They came up with a win tonight on the road at College of Charleston. Earlier, I guess about a week ago, they won at Wright State. How about the Thundering Herd?
Yeah, they're worth paying attention to. They're a lot of fun to watch, and they've kind of I don't want to say they've come out of nowhere, but they're certainly sort of emerging as one of the better teams in the conference.
Yeah, they are. And Rocco, we have three other undefeated teams besides them up there with Rice, FIU, and UAB. I don't know that any of them have really beaten anybody of note, though, yet.
They haven't. But.
Not yet, but I saw a couple of UAB's blowouts, and they look like they could be dangerous. I like that they hired Andy Kennedy. I think they're a team to watch.
Yeah, powerful win over somebody non-D1 tonight, I think. I don't know.
They've been going to the they've been going to the pastry carts, but
they do have. They're going to go at ETSU this week, so
yeah, I see it there. Saturday, UAB at East Tennessee State.
They should kill them. ETSU's way down this year.
Ohio at Marshall, a very interesting game coming up on Sunday.
That's a great one. That's one of the better under the radar games of the week, maybe
Certainly.
A people out of conference. Yeah.
Western Kentucky, I see actually Rhode Island on Sunday. If that game happens, that could be a really interesting game as well. Yeah. Rhode Island's been playing pretty good basketball too.
ODU VCU is always fun. Those teams hate each other.
Yeah. A huge rivalry there.
David, the Horizon League, we've got a couple. This has been a conference that's had a lot of trouble getting games in as well. So I don't know what we can really say about it at this point.
Wright State, who you mentioned just a second ago, finally got their season started. They got a couple games in. Northern Kentucky has been getting games, and the problem is they haven't really been winning them, but they did go up to Dayton and were right in that game. I was actually expecting a blowout, and they were right with the Flyers. So maybe a team to kind of keep an eye on in this league. Detroit finally got some games in. They haven't won.
I'm sorry, David. Detroit Mercy.
Oh, excuse me, Detroit Mercy. That was an accent I'm so used to calling them. But yeah, have not won yet, but they haven't looked terrible.
Yes, we're good. We've been asked to make certain that we describe them as being Detroit Mercy. They are Detroit Mercy. That's what it says on the screen. Hey, hey, when your SID calls us directly and asks us to make a change, we do it.
We do it. Yes. Lots of losing going around in Oakland.
We didn't change their win-loss record, but we changed their team name.
Yeah.
Rocco, if they happen, those are some of the upcoming games in this conference, including Milwaukee getting a bye game on the road at Kansas State Friday night, possibly.
Yeah, the games I think that I like the most on paper are a couple of battles with the MAC. You got Northern Kentucky going to Kent State, a couple intriguing teams. Wright State at Bowling Green, a lot of things could happen there. And then this intriguing Illinois Chicago team gets to host Loyola Chicago in the Battle of Chicago on Sunday. So I think all three of those are worth watching. I think they're all Sunday.
Yeah.
That was a little disrespect to Chicago State there. I don't know.
Sorry, guys. They need some coaches. We should go.
Chicago State would probably not be able to beat Fort Hays State.
David, once again, the next conference is all you, so go for it.
Okay, that one popped up on the screen rather quickly.
No games to load for some reason.
Yeah.
Ivy League no season this year, but David, in all seriousness, we should maybe get the next conference. We can't get the next conference. Metro Atlantic will be the next conference.
Now we're stuck with the Ivy League. Okay.
We got all those red teams that aren't even playing. Okay, the Metro Atlantic Conference, another conference having a lot of trouble getting games in, though.
Yeah, I was going to say Marist and Iona are the only two teams that I've even seen play. No, I saw Ryder a little bit the other night against St. John's, and they looked pretty good. So Syracuse.
They played both of them. I saw them against Syracuse. I think you saw them against St. John's.
Yeah, I saw them against St. John's. But, Iona kind of getting boat raced in their last game. But I never thought we'd say this, but I guess Marist, the story right out of the gate. I think Siena is a team we really like, but they haven't played yet. Monmouth not played yet.
The Iona. I think Rick Pitino is going to get something going there in a few years. That when you lose badly at home to Morgan State, you don't have it this year.
Yeah,
you really don't.
That was embarrassing.
The upcoming schedule here, to the extent any of these games get in, technically they're supposed to be starting conference play, so we'll see what happens.
We got a couple rearranged games there. Iona's going to Fairfield now for 2. Siena's on the sidelines, and Quinnipiac's on the sidelines.
So is Siena in the area where you can't come and go? Because
no, they were all good.
Albany.
They were all good to go, and then they came back and had to retest, and they had a new player test positive, and they got shut down for the second time. So they're very frustrated.
Rocco, the Mid-American Conference, not the Mid-American Intercollegiate Athletic Association, but the real Mid-American Conference. Akron's still shut down. We haven't even seen them play yet, but Bowling Green, not that bad of a start, including a conference win already.
Heck, those last 2 wins they had were right down to the wire. Like, they go to overtime to beat Appalachian State on the road, and then they grind out that Buffalo game. They just toughed it out. Buffalo had the lead most of the way, and that was crucial. Bowling Green's the pick to win the league. Buffalo's going to be probably in the top half for sure, I think. So that was a big early game. So congrats to the Falcons. I think we got to mention also the 40-0 run by the Ohio Bobcats. We'd be remiss to not mention some NCAA history there. Just an unbelievable display, and I don't know how Cleveland State missed so many shots, but this Ohio team's amazing.
They are, and one of the things, like Cleveland State, not a good team. I know that the ultimate argument is, well, look, what have they done? The only loss, if we could go above the radar here for a second, was a game at Illinois that they were in a position to win. It could have gone either way. They had a shot on the last possession to win the game, didn't get it done. This is the same Illinois team that just blew Duke out of Cameron Indoor less than 24 hours ago. This Ohio team is good. Again, they're another team that you hope that the opportunities against maybe some area teams like Michigan, Michigan State, Xavier, Ohio State, West Virginia, Kentucky. I mean, if you draw like a 200-mile radius around where they are, there are a lot of good teams for them to play if those opportunities present themselves with, cancellations and openings and whatnot. They can beat some of those teams. This is a really, really good team.
Yeah, they did look what they've got here.
Yeah, they did just get one opening this morning. The game against Mississippi Valley on the 18th is now out.
Okay, I had someone a little better in mind.
Well, they took that game off. They got the game at Marshall. We already mentioned that earlier. That's a big one. I don't think they have any room for any more games other than one opening now at this point, though.
They had the one opening because of the Valley. They did add a non-D1 game tomorrow against Purdue Northwest.
Well, let me ask you this. So let's say teams start losing conference games, and they for some reason you can't make them up. Are they going to be allowed to throw some extra non-conference games in there?
If the conference allows it, yes.
Yeah, and you can see that. Like, you look at what happened in football, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they had to start changing the rules week to week. So you can definitely see that.
You can schedule. I mean, you can schedule your 27 or 25 depending on whether you're an MTE or not. So if they start dropping conference games, you can make them up.
And it's in the league's best interest to try to send as many teams to the tournament as they can. And if Ohio is a team that's got a strong net rating, you got to let them go out and try to find games if they're in that situation.
Yeah, and there's the upcoming schedule. We've got that Ohio Marshall game. We've got Wright State Bowling Green on there. Again, if these games happen. Couple of interesting games we see on that schedle there. Akron, are they actually going to play
Illinois? They're going to get killed at Iowa.
Northern Illinois at Iowa. Luckily, they get Edwardsville a few days after that to make up for it. Akron look like they'll finally get playing against the Bonnies. That should be the first game for both teams if it happens. I think.
Yeah,
if it happens.
Yeah, that one looks to be on track. I was on the Bonnie website this morning.
David, the MEAC should be coming up on the screen any second now. If not, then you can just
got some MEAC action. We got some Norfolk here. All right. I think Norfolk's the story of the league. Their only loss, a real close game against Crosstown. I don't know. I know they don't play very often, but Crosstown feuding. If it's not a rivalry, it's a feud against Old Dominion. But they're kind of a story. Traditionally they've been one of the better teams in the MEAC. They've kind of fallen off in recent years, but they look pretty good this year.
Yeah, well, they're also one of only 2 wins the conference had overall for the past week. So
Yeah.
with their win over Hampton, Morgan State lost to Iona.
No, they beat Iona.
Yeah,
I'm saying Morgan State beat Iona. That's the other conference win. I apologize. I had that backwards. We thought Coppin State would even have a shot at Georgetown with Juan Dixon going to Georgetown. Did not happen. God, they got blown out. We've got some more bye games coming up still this week here, including a game later on tonight between FAMU and Oregon.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I was going to say we got the Rattlers tonight. It's a good way to wrap up the night.
And then they go to Oklahoma. This Florida A&M team clearly not traveling this year. Oh, wait, never mind.
If FAMU gives me a reason to watch the Oregon game, I'm going to stay up for it. If they don't, I'm going to bed.
Then they're going to go to Austin P. How about that?
Yeah. Austin P. We'll get to them here in a second. What a Anyway, we'll get to them here in a second.
Rocco, how about Drake now 5-0 in the Missouri Valley and actually got a little bit of love in the coaches poll? Somebody voted for them.
Good. I think more people should. I mean, from what we've seen, they look awesome. But I guess their best win is still Kansas State, and
they spent this week beating St. Ambrose and McKendree. Yes, go ahead.
So I guess that kind of adds more question marks. Every time Kansas State steps on the floor, that win gets worse. But that's not Drake's fault. They still looked the part. I'd love to see them play more. I looked at their schedule earlier. It's not very exciting from here until they get into the Valley, which the Valley games are good enough for me. I love this league. Loyola Chicago, glad to see them back. They took out Chicago State tonight. They'll get that Illinois-Chicago game over the weekend. And then they just added a game against Duquesne next Wednesday. So that will be interesting.
Ooh, that's pretty good because considering all that they've played so far is Lewis and Chicago State, we really need. I like this Loyola Chicago team heading into the season. I still like them, but I don't have nothing to back it up with yet. Missouri State still hasn't even played a game yet.
Hey, heck of a win for Evansville tonight too. Shout out to the Aces. They were awful last year, and
Todd Licklider getting I think his first win since taking over.
Yeah, and
probably,
and not an awful Eastern Illinois team at all. I think it's a solid Eastern Illinois team.
Right.
David, the upcoming schedule in the Valley. Any thoughts on that besides the Loyola UIC game?
That's the one that I'm kind of looking forward to the most. Can Drake keep it going? I mean, you kind of want to watch that. The Trees going to St. Louis.
Yeah, the Trees almost lost to Truant State last night. So the Trees are not looking good so far.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I think that was their opener, right? So maybe they'll
get
a little better as they go along.
David, let me stick with you over in the Northeast Conference, one of our favorite leagues. We got conference play started last night and tonight with these back-to-back games, same sites. I think the story from Tuesday night was the fact that Central Connecticut, who has not been very good, went to Fairleigh Dickinson, who was one of the league favorites, and it wasn't even as close as that 94-87 final was.
Yeah, I mean, they just kind of blew them off the floor, which – it's kind of remarkable. I mean,
but then after you came back to today's game and got the revenge and did win it.
Yeah, but anyway, Central Connecticut still getting one of them. But what a fun league! Like, we love interacting. Like, you get the NEC app. If you don't have it, download it, put it on your Apple TV, your desktop, your tablet, whatever it is. You can just navigate the games really easily. You can tweet while you're watching them. It's great.
And Rocco, the other story though in this league here, Bryant, who looked so good, went on yesterday on Tuesday and went to St. Francis Brooklyn and just blew them out of the water.
Yeah.
Then today they were up for most of the game and they blew it at the end.
Amazing. I actually watched the press conference last night with the Terriers head coach. His name's Glenn Brake, I believe.
Yeah.
Anyway, such a fun interview. Like, just follow them on Twitter if you're not. He's all full of so much energy. Even though they lost by 20 last night or 19, he was very positive going into tonight, and it was pretty cool to see them pull that out tonight. But I do think Bryant is actually a contender.
I think so
They've got some big time athletes, and Peter Kitts can really shoot. It's just a matter of like their mental stability. Like they can build a 20-point lead and blow it, and that's what I think happened today, right? So we got to see. They're a little roller coaster of a team.
I got to give them a little bit of shout out for what happened on Saturday also. They played Rhode Island College, not Rhode Island, but Rhode Island College, a non-D1 school. This was around 10 a.m. They called Rhode Island College up to play the game at 2 o'clock that afternoon, and they got the game done. So, talk about last minute
Talk
scheduling.
About event management. They got the place staffed. They got, well, I guess they didn't let fans in, but that is remarkable.
Nobody can sell a deal like Jared Grasso.
That was, I think that still holds the record for the quickest scheduled game so far this season.
Yes.
Probably be beaten before the year is over. We've got more conference games, although some of them I believe have already gone off. I think there was a couple of outbreaks. I think is it the Merrimack Long Island games that are off, Rocco?
Yeah, Merrimack's on the mend right now.
Right, but we might see a few other conference games coming up here with St. Francis and Central Connecticut next week. But we are starting into conference play, which is fun.
Yeah, I think Sacred Heart's also on pause, but everybody else looks good to go, I think.
Well, at least get some of these games done. And I think there's a conference that built in – the reason they're starting so early, they built in some extra weeks to make up some of these games, among other things.
Very wise.
Rocco, let me stick with you over in the OVC with Belmont, Eastern Kentucky, Murray State all off to pretty good starts. They each have one loss, though, so far in the season, and Belmont's was a real head-scratcher.
Belmont's was a head-scratcher. Sanford just came in there and shot the lights out, and Belmont couldn't recover. They got into a big hole early, and Sanford held them off. It was just bombs away from Bucky's boys. Too much for the Bruins to handle. A very interesting game. But Belmont got back on track in the conference opener yesterday. Unfortunately for Tennessee State, a team I like a lot with Coach Penny Collins. That was their season opener. It's just brutal to play a team like Belmont in your first game, a team that's first off pissed off they lost to Sanford, second off they run really good stuff, and that's just a lot for your first game. But I think Tennessee State will hang around in the standings this year. They were fifth last year. I think David wanted to talk a little bit about Austin Peay.
Yeah, well, David actually wanted to ask you about them, specifically them and Murray State.
Well, more or less Murray State. So Murray, coming into the year, I think the three of us, and just about everyone else on earth thought that this would be a 3-horse race. It's normally a 2-horse race with Murray, Belmont, and Austin Peay. On top of that, Murray had a little bit of a head-scratching loss earlier in the year.
Middle Tennessee State,
Yeah, against Middle Tennessee, a rather what we think is a really weak team, at least this year, out of Conference USA. They just ran over Austin Peay. I mean, it wasn't even – has anybody at any point this season looked more impressive out of this conference than Murray did last night? Holy cow.
That was the most impressive game I've seen, especially with that head scratcher, which means, for example, when they go and play Prairie View next week, they're probably going to lose the game because that's the type of thing it is.
And one of the horses, it might be a 3-horse race, but instead of Austin Peay, it might be Eastern Kentucky. Their only loss, a really close game at Xavier. This is a team that likes to play pressure defense. They're a real good defensive team. I think they're leading the nation in turnovers forced. And they really, I think they had to sweat a little bit in their opener. Who was it against? Moorhead, but who's not that strong. But other than that, this is a team that might be able to hang with, maybe not Murray, as good as they looked yesterday, but maybe with Belmont and certainly with Austin Peay.
All right. It'll be interesting as the season gets going here. We're getting into some more, I think there's some more conference play coming up next week. Some non-D1 games against the likes of Transylvania and McKendree. That's a heck of a trip all the way from Romania. But, of course, we already mentioned the Battle of Boulevard Saturday, Belmont and Lipscomb as well. Rocco, let me head back to you for the two teams only that we even discussed, the Patriot League. There was one game this week. Army did beat LaSalle, though.
Yeah, and unfortunately now we're in a situation where they're both on the shelf because Navy just went on a pause for COVID reasons, and Army didn't schedule any more games. So unless Army, and I read the LaSalle recap just to see if they're thinking about calling anybody, and the recap story, if you go to Army West Point's website, will tell you they're on Christmas break. So I chalked that up as they're done till January. And Navy had 2 other games scheduled with Delaware and I think Morgan State actually, and those are both scrapped. So I think we're done with the Patriot League for a month. But from what we saw,
there's upcoming games. There aren't any. Go ahead.
No, yeah, it's gonna look. I think it's gonna look like this for the next few episodes. But Army, West Point, Navy, what a great showing for what we saw, and we get to leave with that impression for 4 weeks. How cool is that?
There we go. David, conference that actually has teams playing games. How about the SoCon?
Yeah, and I still really like this Mercer team. I know they haven't really done much since we talked last week, but I mean they've still got those 2 good wins against Georgia Tech and Georgia State. Both of those kind of continue to look better. They look really good on the court. I know Chattanooga's a story with 41 wins. They had a real nice one today, I think. What was it, Bellarmine?
On the road at Bellarmine in Freedom.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah, and they won that. I know Bellarmine a transitional team, but still to go on the road and get that win. Furman, the team that I was big on, that this is a team that I thought belonged inside the bubble or was good enough to be in that discussion. If you ask anyone if Cincinnati's a solid tournament team, they would probably tell you maybe a bubble at best. So this is Furman's chance. If you're a solid tournament team, then go beat a bubble team. I don't want to say that they played poorly. I'm not disappointed or anything like that. But if you are an under the radar team that belongs inside the bubble, then you have to beat other teams that are at least on the level that Cincinnati's on, and they weren't able to get it done. Again, it was just one game. You don't want to read into it too much, but I was so certain they were going to win that game. Still good. I still really like them. I think I still voted them kind of high, but does Furman have what it takes to get all the way inside the bubble?
I still like this Furman team a lot, and if they can run through this conference, given the strength of this conference, I think that they will get some consideration for an at-large bid if they need one. Rocco, of course, Greensboro has been a little disappointing so far, only 1-2 on the season. But do we need to mention for one of the first times ever VMI after how well they played at Va-Tech?
Played well at Va-Tech. VMI's got some shooters. I like the way they're coached. I mean, if you remember the SoCon last year, I think they only won like 3 or 4 league games, but they made everybody sweat. They took ETSU to the wire. They took Greensboro to the wire. They took Furman to the wire. I mean, this is I remember when I was covering that ETSU Furman game last year, I sat down next to an ETSU beat reporter, and he said VMI is the most annoying team to play in the league. and I was like, man, I would have never thought that as an outsider. And he goes, we just don't want to see them in the SoCon tournament, and we'll be fine. And they didn't have to play them. So now I'm paying attention to them a lot closer. They're just a really pesky team that never gives up, and they keep coming back, and they have good shooters.
And a conference opener possibly coming up tomorrow night. They're hosting Mercer, so that should be be an interesting game to start off conference play here in the SoCon.
I think it's worth watching. It's it's great to see another league get kicked off. I'm getting excited every time.
I love this league.
A conference kicks off their league play. But yeah, Mercer's been fantastic, and I'm really curious to see what happens when they go out to Georgia State next Wednesday.
The rematch,
the rubber match, rematch,
a couple other interesting games you may want to keep an eye on here. Samford, after winning at Belmont, they're at Georgia. There might be a winnable game for them. It's not a very good Georgia team.
If they shoot like that, they will.
So Furman's at Alabama coming up on Tuesday as well. If that game is a go, that's one to pay attention to. Coastal Carolina at Wofford, another one on Tuesday. So lots of interesting games.
Yeah, Furman. It's if they get that win, they're right back in. The conversation.
And again, they're not playing protected seed caliber teams. These are bubble-ish, 6 to 12 seed range teams. And if that's what you are, then you need to go on. If you want in, then you got to win those games. Anyway.
David, here is the Southland Conference.
There it is. Yes.
One conference game was played last week. Nothing else has been played in terms of conference games, but this story, even though they're 5-1, is Abilene Christian,
Absolutely.
Who we thought they were way over their head going to Texas Tech tonight, and they were in the game all night.
All night long, really good. I mean, it was a defensive rock fight, but I mean,
it was 2-1 at the first media timeout.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it was poor offense. It wasn't good offense, but it was both teams really tough defensively. I mean, it just felt like on every possession, teams were really having to work to get the points, just watching it down the stretch. And Abilene right in there, right all the way down with less than 2 minutes to go, they were within a possession. So, it was just – I was really impressed with them. I don't think Texas Tech is quite as good as they're going to be as the year progresses, but what a showing by Abilene Christian. And can they win the Southland? I think they can. They might be able to finally overtake SFA's dominance.
Rocco, you with us on the Abilene Christian bandwagon? I think I asked you the same question last week, didn't I?
Probably, but that's okay. I agree. Yeah, I think they deserve to be the favorite at this point. They've gone and played a heavyweight. Stephen F. Austin had the same chance tonight. They couldn't stay on the same floor as Baylor. Baylor probably better than Texas Tech at this point, but still, similar challenges in the state and getting the big stage. Any player on Abilene Christian or Stephen F. Austin had to have been fired up to play tonight, and Abilene had the goods to make it a great game, even though it was ugly. The defensive style. Joe Golding actually mirrors Chris Beard in a lot of his coaching style, the defense and the way that they run their system. So it was really interesting to see them match up. I know they're good friends too. Joe Golding seems like a really good guy, by the way. I've seen him on a few different interviews this year. It's been it'll be interesting to see. I think we're going to have a feature on him soon on the bracketeer.org site, so look out for that. But yeah, well-deserved. They should be the favorite going into the year from what we know right this minute. And I think the other thing we got to mention, Chad, and thanks to you for tweeting it out, the best buzzer beater of the season by Lamar tonight.
Yeah, Davian Buster for Lamar. Tie game. Lamar has at Louisiana Monroe. Lamar has the ball. Actually, an awfully run possession. They had the ball with 5 seconds left and made no move to penetrate at all. It was still 40 feet away, almost at the half-court line, throws the ball up at the buzzer, and it goes through the net. Nothing but net. And Lamar wins. So it was a great, although I think it was actually pretty poorly run offense for a final play of the game. But Lamar gets a nice win there at ULM. By the way, it's not on the screen, but that Baylor score was 83-52 over SFA tonight. So it really was, as Bronco mentioned, pretty much a blowout there. It was Buster's first game of the season, too. He hadn't played yet before tonight. So, maybe that'll help things get even better for Lamar, who was 0-4 before that game.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of games on the schedule here, Rocco, for the next week, although who knows if they'll actually get played or not.
Yeah, I think most of these look good from what I understand. I think
not that Sam Houston game. That was supposed to be tonight, and that one went off.
That was scrapped, but Sam Houston was able to move quickly, and they now have LSU on Monday.
Okay.
So that's another good paycheck for that program. Probably not much of a competitive game, but and I think Abilene Christian's now kind of in cruise control. They'll beat up on Hardin Simmons next Wednesday for sure, and McMurray on Saturday. So it's almost like a bye week for them.
As long as they don't have to play Fort Hays State, they'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I noticed that Houston Baptist Rice game. I was just wondering, how far apart are they, and have they ever met in the NCAA tournament?
We're not doing that again, David. We did that one earlier. How about we talk about the SWAC instead?
Okay.
Which you can see it there, David. We are going for it. #3bid SWAC.
Sweet 3-bid
and
SWAC.
Arkansas Pine Bluff with a road win at Arkansas State tonight.
That is remarkable.
So how about that? Maybe.
Actually, big time congratulations to them. It's been a while since they've won an out-of-conference road game, I think, or it doesn't happen very often. They've had some good teams in the past, not recently though. So good for them to get that win. And how about Alabama A&M? They haven't played, I don't think, since their win at Samford, and maybe they just decided that was enough.
Well, they like their top 100 JNG rating, and they're just going to sit there with it. Rocco, Texas Southern did get the one nice win so far up at Wyoming.
Yeah.
They're probably going to be the team to beat at the end of the day, although maybe
Oh, yeah.
Prairie View. I don't know. But
Yeah, Prairie View just got Cam Mack eligible. He was a starter for Nebraska last year, so it's a pretty big boost for a SWAC program. And, Southern's been getting their butts kicked against big schools this week, just again tonight against Arkansas. But I still think Southern's a pretty interesting team for the SWAC race.
yeah, that Alabama State Samford game, I believe that was listed there. That one went off. That's why we don't have a score from that. But you can see
Right.
Prairie View
Alabama State's done. Yeah.
Yeah, Prairie View at Murray, Texas Southern at Auburn. Might be a winnable game for Texas
Yeah.
Southern.
Oh, yeah, Auburn's just been pitiful.
Again, if these games happen.
Yeah.
Rocco, over in the Summit League, I think we still really like the South Dakota State team, despite a couple losses already.
Really like them. I mean, those two losses were against West Virginia and somebody else in that tournament.
St. Mary's, wasn't it?
St. Mary's, exactly. So no shame there. Last week, I think we talked about the Iowa State win, but they went on Friday and they go to Bradley and win in that building.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, so that's probably a top 100 win. I mean, this Jackrabbits team can really play. They've got weapons. They got 3 or 4 guys that can really shoot the ball, and they've got a good post presence down there as well. So I really like this Jackrabbits team. The other team I wanted to mention is
an 0-4 team.
No, I'm not going to go there.
Okay.
I just wanted to quickly shout out Oral Roberts. They took Oklahoma State to the wire last night. They took Wichita to the wire their game before that, which I think was 6 days before. But they've got a player that's probably going to be the player of the year in the league. His name is Max Abbas. He had 36, 6, and 9 and in the game last night, 9 assists. So his efficiency ratings are through the roof for a guard. And 28, 6, and 8 against Wichita. I mean, the guy was going toe for toe. He, in a lot of people's opinion, outplayed Cade Cunningham last night. Already getting some looks now for the NBA out of the Summit League. It could end up being almost like a John Morant story. I don't know if it'll blow up to that level, but it definitely a fun player to watch, and it keeps Oral Roberts in the hunt, I think.
Dave, do you want to talk about the 0-4 North Dakota State team who took Kansas to the wire on Saturday?
Yeah, they did. I mean, it's worth a quick mention. Real unimpressive all year long, but, they were right into that game. They led for much of it. Probably, like, out of the 40 minutes, they probably led for about 30 of it. And all the way, like, when you say to the wire, I mean, we mean down to with less than a minute to go, it looked like they might win the game.
We've got an interesting week coming up here in the Summit League. We have the 4 Dakota teams, North Dakota, South Dakota, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, are going to Sioux Falls Thursday, Friday, Saturday to play a round robin. Each team will play the other team. So there'll be a total of 6 games played over those 3 days. Even though they are conference foes, none of these games will count as conference games. It is I guess it's an MTE is what it is. It's a Dakota MTE.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun, though, for fun 3 days in Sioux Falls.
You're right. And what's interesting, and when I heard about this, my question was, say that they were going to count them as conference games, would they still have been able to count it as an MTE? I don't think so, but maybe.
I don't think they can if they're conference games.
Yeah, you can't. No, that actually is a rule for MTEs. Although I don't know about this year, nobody can be from the same conference. Right. That is in order to maintain that status, that is a rule.
Right, but there's those games. A couple other interesting games though. Omaha, Kansas, but Tulsa at Oral Roberts, a crosstown rivalry coming up on Saturday, and Northern Colorado, Denver next Wednesday. It is
the Front Range,
our favorite
mythical conference.
Rocco Sunbelt Conference. We've got, I think it's coming up here, both Georgia State and Little Rock are teams that we've been following, I think, so far this year. A couple other teams undefeated, though, including Georgia Southern and Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, Coastal, I think, is worth keeping an eye on. We've talked about them on previous shows, just untested so far, so we'll kind of keeping them on the side until they play a big game. But man, I just can't get over how bad Arkansas State is. I mean, the one thing I really liked about the Sun Belt was most teams, if not all of them, can stay inside the top 200, but Arkansas State's made that almost impossible now this year. I don't see them getting back in the top 200. But
they are pitiful.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, even Troy's going to be a lot better than them. But a couple sleeper teams like Appalachian State and Texas State kind of hung around a little bit with Texas tonight. It's certainly worth keeping your eye on.
It was a 74-53 final of Texas winning that game, but it was closer than that.
Yeah. Coastal, I'm not quite there on them yet. I still like Georgia State and the Little Rockos. I mean, to me, I don't. Is Coastal up? You think they're as good as those two?
We don't know yet. I just know they got a full strength team again, and I think they're worth keeping your eye on. But I don't think they deserve the clout that the top two have.
Yeah.
There's only one Coastal game coming up in the next week on the schedule as of now. Of course, that could always change, but that's a game at Wofford on Tuesday.
It's a good game.
Yeah.
In terms of teams like Little Rock, I don't even see them playing a D1 game on that schedule there. So
Little Rock, more than any other team, it was like, oh, this is going to be a good game, and then Zach would cancel it.
Last conference. Why don't we get this real quick here, Rocco? We've got the WAC, where the story heading into the season was New Mexico State, who has not played a D1 game, and who knows when they will.
Yeah, it's still the story. They're back on COVID pause. They were out here in California, all set to play Santa Clara this week, and I think they were going to play Cal Poly, and it all got scrapped. They're back in Phoenix in a hotel. It's a really brutal situation for that program. But whenever they get out there, however they have to do it, they're committed to being the WAC champions again, I'll tell you that, and they'll be a tough tournament team if they can get there. But for what we know, I think the story of the week, actually, like yesterday, it became official that Southern Utah got invited. They're still deciding if they're going to join. And the rumor is there's going to be 4 or 5 others invited very soon. So that's a big topic in the WAC right now, just kind of off the court. And then on the court, Grand Canyon, we still don't know a lot about them, but they got Bryce Drew as the coach, and Nevada comes to town on Friday. So I think
they can beat them. I mean,
Yeah.
The WAC looking at maybe bringing back football, albeit not at the FCS level, and inviting some football school. We better not get into who. We don't want to be wrong. But the probably the best game on that list there is the Nevada Grand Canyon game. Utah Valley at Utah is a rivalry game, maybe. Arizona State at Grand Canyon on Sunday. That might be a little over their heads.
That's fun, though, because I don't think they've played yet. And they're finally doing it this year. So and they're going to play in the Lopes Arena, which unfortunately won't have fans. But I think they need to do that game again when all the fans are back, because that atmosphere is insane.
It is. It's incredible.
Let's head to our under the radar top 10 lists. This is our top 10 for the week for December 9th of 2020. We have 3 honorable mentions. So we'll start with this 3 of them. Drake, Marshall, and Army West Point getting votes to be in the top 10 list.
This is a team that almost beat Florida. I like them.
Marshall, I thought Marshall belonged in the top 10, but you guys clearly did not agree with me.
Well, I thought Army belonged in the top 10. And I guess Rocco thought Drake did.
Yeah, I had Drake. I'll admit it.
Ohio U getting the number 10 spot.
How are they not higher? You all are insane.
We had a tie for 8.
I'll take the blame. I totally forgot them, and I wish I could go back.
South Dakota State and Liberty coming in at a tie for 8. Coming in at number 7, we have got New Mexico State on the power of 2 non-D1 wins, including that huge road win at Arizona Christian. New Mexico State, number 7. Winthrop coming in at number 6. Abilene Christian, number 5. I would have had them even higher than that. I did not ding Abilene Christian one bit for not winning tonight because of how well they played in this game. So I think they belong at the top of this list. They're very close to it. Number 4, Loyola Chicago, also this have shown us nothing.
Yeah. It was quite a win against Chicago State.
Lewis, they crushed Lewis. Two-way tie for second place between Mercer and Furman. Two SoCon teams tied there for second place. So
love it.
And number one, I don't think it's any surprise. They were number one last week. They remain number one this week. It is Western Kentucky, despite not doing much to help their resume this past week. On that note, though, let's go to final thoughts. Rocco, any other thoughts about anything that you want to discuss?
Yeah, I guess the only other final thought I had was just going through the exercise of looking through all these conferences before we jumped on the call tonight. It was almost like, going back to your hometown you grew up in 20 years later, and you're driving around and you don't recognize anything, and it's kind of like a ghost town. That's what going through some of these conferences is like right now when you look at the Patriot League and the America East and the WAC and the SWAC and the CAA, with so many teams just shut down. It just gets a little depressing for a second. But on the bright side, it is good that teams in each of these leagues, besides the Ivy, are on the court and making it happen to get games in. And I just hope everybody's learning from the experience and things just improve as the months go on, because it just really hits me a little harder that these leagues are suffering even more than the leagues that get all the attention. So just hoping everybody gets out there and can make the most of the opportunity.
Yeah, I got to echo that. It is tough to see all these teams that are still 0-0 and that might be 0-0 for a while or have one game and who knows when they'll play. David.
To sort of build on that a little bit and to build on the top 10 that we just revealed, you really hope that Ohio U and Winthrop and maybe a few others, like Western Kentucky's had their chances, South Dakota State's had their chances, but those two in particular, you really hope that they can find a way to get some quality teams on their schedule and try and get some of those types of wins. Furman kind of had a shot at one tonight. They've got Alabama. They'll get a few cracks, but for Ohio U to go into Illinois, who might be a 1 seed, and have that be their only shot, say they'd played someone that was a 5 seed instead, I bet they would have maybe won that game. So you would like to see them get the kinds of opportunities and the kinds of wins to give them the resume that matches how good I think those two in particular probably are.
I agree completely. But on that note, I do want to thank everybody for joining us. We'll be back again Monday night with a Hoops HD report. Next Wednesday, another Under the Radar. But on behalf of Rocco Miller, check him out on bracketeer.org as well. David Griggs, if you follow him on Twitter, please delete him. I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again real soon.